One of the first subjects that started making me skeptical of the Bible was the existence of hell. I started looking into the opposite Christian viewpoint, which argued that hell didn't exist and that it was not compatible with a loving, compassionate God. Many of the arguments made sense to me. For instance, the Jews do not believe in eternal torment. Any mention of the word hell in the Old Testament is a reference to either Sheol, the abode of the dead where both good and evil people go, or simply a reference to the grave. Since the Old Testament was written by Jews, eternal torment as Christians know it is nowhere to be found. The Jews didn't believe in it. It's not until meek and mild Jesus comes along that eternal torment in hell is actually mentioned. There's no warning from God in Genesis about hell. That's a pretty serious omission, don't you think? Countless people would have died without ever knowing that they were going to hell. There is not one warning of hell in the book of Acts. This is a book focused on the disciples preaching Christ to anything that moved, yet not once do they warn anyone about being thrown into a lake of fire. Isn't it odd that today Christians on the streets continually warn people about hell, yet the very first street preachers in Acts never mentioned it? Aside from Jesus' words in the Gospels, hell is almost never mentioned until the book of Revelation, written almost 40 years after Christ's death. And of course, what kind of loving, merciful God torments someone for eternity? Even if it were true that those who do not accept Christ cannot enter heaven, what kind of loving God would torture someone endlessly? Why not just have mercy and simply erase their existence? Allowing them to be tormented forever is completely sadistic and does not align with the God described in the New Testament. Though one could say that it is very consistent with the God of the Old Testament, but that's another video. All of this made sense to me, but there was one big problem. Jesus and the book of Revelation had very clear warnings of hell. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were opened, and anyone not found in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. There are also numerous other references. Something is wrong if every one of these scriptures needs an in-depth essay explaining why they don't mean what most Christians think they mean. A plain reading of these verses show that there is clearly some form of punishment after death for those who reject Christ. So while hell as Christians know it is certainly mentioned in the Bible, there's also enough logical evidence to show it was never taken seriously. No one in the Old Testament was warned, and after the Gospels, the subject almost never comes up again until the book of Revelation. Paul mentions everlasting destruction in 2 Thessalonians 1:9, though the authorship of that book is disputed. If hell was so feared as it is by Christians today, why didn't Paul, who had so much concern for the churches he wrote to, mention hell more often in his letters? 2 Peter also has a quick reference to hell. For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell, Greek word Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved for judgment, then the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptations, and to reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment. First off, most scholars agree that 2 Peter was not written by the Apostle Peter himself. The part I find interesting is the author's reference to Tartarus. Tartarus is known in Greek mythology as the lowest part of Hades. Hades is somewhat similar to the Hebrew Sheol that is mentioned in the Old Testament. It was basically a place where the dead go, whether good or evil. When hell is mentioned in the New Testament, sometimes the original word Hades is used as a generic term for hell, though the New Testament does attach torment to it. But Tartarus in Greek mythology is known as the lowest part of Hades, where evil people go and are tormented. To me, this reference is too specific and too attached to Greek mythology. The author of 2 Peter might as well have said that God lives on Mount Olympus, or that Satan has a three-headed dog named Cerberus. It seems Greek mythology was one influence that helped shape the Christian doctrine of hell. The actions of God in the Old Testament, the actions of the disciples in the book of Acts, and the writings of Paul are all inconsistent with the belief in eternal torment. If Jews and early Christians alike truly believed in eternal punishment in a lake of fire, their actions speak otherwise. Overall, the doctrine of hell seems to be a result of Christian theology gradually being developed and refined over dozens of years, with various authors adding their own flavour and cultural influence to the text. Hell is in the Bible, but at the same time, it's not. Thanks for watching.